In this video, I'm going to share with you ideas for how you can take the lessons I share in the weekly podcast, LitCentric Radio, and turn them into remote lessons. So we're actually going to do that in 4 easy steps. The first thing we're going to do is engage students in a read aloud. We're also going to have them answer the text-dependent questions that I feature in the lessons that come with LitCentric Radio. The students are going to finish a digital bridge chart. So this is definitely different than the bridge chart they'd be doing in class with their teacher, which is normally done on chart paper. But here we're going to turn it into a digital format. And finally, students will complete the writing task on their own. To prepare for a lesson like this, you'll need a few different tools. The first thing you're going to need are lessons from LitCentric Radio. Now, these are available for purchase at litcentric.com in the shop tab. There's a special grouping there called LitCentric Radio, and there you're going to find the growing lesson bundle, and it has every lesson featured on the show. There are going to be 48 of them at the end of season 4. And that's a growing bundle. So there's one low price, you make the purchase one time, and the lessons just keep getting added every single episode. Those lessons are downloaded as PDFs normally, and they feature the text-dependent questions that go along with the text featured in the show. And those are actually able to be printed onto sticky notes, and you can stick them directly in your read aloud text for use in your classroom. There's also a photo of a sample bridge chart that's discussed and shared in the episode. And finally, there's the writing task that students would do that aligns beautifully with the text-dependent questions as well as the discussion and bridge chart building that they do, and then finally gets expressed through the writing tasks that students are asked to do. And that writing task is available printed on paper for students to write directly on. And of course, here we're going to do that a little bit differently. The other things you'll need are Google Slides, which of course are free to use. I also suggest getting a Google Classroom account if you don't already have one. You're going to need a video link to the read aloud that goes along with the lesson. You can either upload your own read aloud, or you can find one available on YouTube. I'm pretty sure it won't be hard to find one. And finally, you'll need to use your phone or some other camera to take photos of the actual book. Or you can take screenshots of the video link that you found, because we'll want to focus students' attention in a couple of places for those text-dependent questions. So here's the example I created for us today in Google Slides. This is a slide deck that is meant to be the entire lesson from beginning to end for students. So we don't have to send students in 14 different directions. We can keep them in this single slide deck and have them do all of the activities and writing and thinking they need to do all right here. So you can use this as a model for how you might take LitCentric Radio lessons that are normally, like I said, in PDF form, and transferring those into a format like this that students can use remotely. This slide deck is available free for download at litcentric.com in the shop tab under the LitCentric Radio section. So I recommend having an introduction slide like this one that lets students know where this text or lesson come from, what episode you're referring to. There's a link to LitCentric there in case you want to reference that later. And then I created this slide here that sets students up for success so they know what their responsibilities are throughout the slide deck. And this is generic enough that you can use this no matter which LitCentric Radio lesson that you'd like to do. So here you can see that the first thing students are asked to do is to follow the directions in the slide notes. I like to use the slide notes section to prompt students as they go. That actually frees up the slide to be used for more of student work, and that way it doesn't get too cluttered. So I also did the directions there in the slide notes using that bright pink color because I know it's easier for students to see that, and then it'll remind them to look there as they go through the slides. Students are asked to watch the video, which is their equivalent of reading the book, because we know most of our students probably don't have copies of every single text, in that podcast at home. And this way, we don't have to actually do the read aloud for them. If you would like to do a read aloud for them, you have a copy of the text and you're meeting with your students in web conferencing software like Google Meet, you could certainly do that. And if you can do that and ask the text-dependent questions that way, I would recommend doing that. In this way here in the slide deck, this is completely asynchronous. So students can do this on their own, and then you can go ahead and check in with them as they're working and also see the final results of their work. So after they watch the video, and I'll show you how we embed that directly into the slides. They're going to answer the questions, and these are the text-dependent questions, as I mentioned, that are in the LitCentric Radio lessons. Then they're going to complete or finish that bridge chart that we have for them, and I'll show you some simple ways to modify some of those. And then finally, they complete the writing task that actually comes directly from the lesson. So the first step in preparing this for students is we want to engage them in a read aloud. And there's two things we need to do. First, we need to locate a video of the read aloud on YouTube. Now, like I said, you can make your own and upload it to YouTube. I recommend skipping that step if you can, because it'll save you a lot of time. There's a lot of folks online who have read alouds like these already. I bet you'll find one that will work for you. So locate that URL and let's go ahead and put it into our slide deck. So here you can see that I've inserted Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus into the slide deck. It's the actual video that's going to play right in the slides. So it doesn't open a new window or take students to YouTube. Because Google owns YouTube, they really sync very well together. And of course, they want us to stay in those platforms. So they make it really easier for us to do that. So to insert the video, first I need to go to YouTube and grab the URL. So find it. Go ahead and highlight it, copy it, and then you come over here to insert, and we're going to actually choose insert video, and that will actually take us to a screen that looks like this. And there's the URL that I added in, and I click search, and then this below is what pops up, and that's the video that I actually found on YouTube. And then I go down to the bottom and I go ahead and select it, and that pops it right into the slide. Now you'll probably have to resize it a bit and center it and things like that, but that's easy enough to do. And then below you can see I actually typed in the source of the video. Now unfortunately I can't provide these videos for you. And I can't provide all the slides with the photos and everything because I can't legally charge you for those, because those are not my works. The copyrights belong to publishers, and they're the intellectual property of the authors and illustrators. So these are definitely things that you're going to have to do to make the lessons work for you remotely. But hopefully this video can help you think through some of that. Now we're on to step 2. So we've got our video all done. Now we need students to answer those text-dependent questions. And you don't have to create those questions because they're already created for you in the LitCentric Radio lesson plan. So when you purchase those, you quickly download those as PDFs. You can copy and paste directly from, there's usually a single, sometimes 2 pages in there that have the text-dependent questions on those sticky notes. Like I said, just highlight those, copy them. You'll also need to add photos from the book itself. Like I said, you can do a screenshot from someone playing it on a video online, or if you have the text at home, even easier, just snap a couple photos. You're going to take photos of the pages that match the specific text-dependent questions. Now, this is easy to do because in the LitCentric Radio lessons, I tell you exactly which page that text-dependent question matches. And a lot of times, though, in our read-alouds, especially if they're fiction text, they don't have page numbers in the book. So I always consider the first page to be the very first page when the text actually appears in the book. So when the story actually starts, I consider that page 1. And then you count on from there. So it's pretty easy to do. So you'll need those photos of only those specific pages. We don't have to take photos of the entire book. And of course, you can pick and choose which text-dependent questions you want students to answer. Then you're going to want to make space for students to actually do some typing. So let's take a look at what that can look like. I've included about 5 slides here that go along with Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus. So you can see here that we've got a photo directly from the book, and I just cropped it and added it into the slide. Then I'm circling around, that's the text-dependent question right there. And again, I copied and pasted that from the LitCentric Radio lesson. Then I've added the text box for students to actually type their answer. And you can have students add their own text boxes, but I think it's just easier to go ahead and do it, quickly for yourself. And to keep the text box active like that, you need to type something in it. So if you just say something like type your answer here or type here, that lets students know where to click, and they can just go ahead and highlight that and then begin typing. And that way it keeps it nice and neat all on the same slide. And the format that we have here, you can see it follows the exact same format for the different slides. And that way you're just interchanging the pictures quickly, cutting and pasting those text-minute questions, and you're good to go. Our third step in our process for preparing these remote lessons are the bridge charts. And like I said, normally the bridge charts would be completed in class using a lot of discussion with partners and with the teacher, and using the students to help work through the thinking and the language needed to populate those charts. Bridge charts are generally, they're not made in isolation. The teacher does not prepare them ahead of time in the sense that she presents a completed chart, because that would not be a bridge chart, that would be a poster. And so a bridge chart really has to be something that bridges understanding from the reading into the writing, and that has to be done in an interactive way. Now, we are limited here in the sense that we are building this asynchronously. Now, if you, like I said before, if you have Google Meet or another web conferencing software and you can get students to interact with you, then you can easily share your screen on this Google slide and build the bridge chart with your students live. So I would definitely recommend doing that if you have that option. And if not, we're going to create bridge charts. We may have to modify some of them from the LitCentric Radio episodes, but we're going to take some of those ideas and make them as interactive as we can so that a student could complete it on their own, and they're still going to get the benefit of bridging understanding from reading into writing. But second bullet here, you can see I've noted in particular that sorting activities work very well for this type of situation. So having students move, things around, which I'm going to show you we have here in this free lesson for you. That is a particularly easy one to do. A lot of the LitCentric Radio lessons actually have things typed for you. You just go ahead, cut and paste like I did, and you'll see shortly how I did that. The third bullet there actually says, though, that you might want to include space for typing as needed, because some of the bridge charts, they may have some information already populated there, but then you want students to populate the rest of the chart with some of their thinking. So you'll need a text box to do that. So that might be something that you want to do. Here, though, that one we're going to take a look at is the bridge chart for Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus. And this is a sorting bridge chart. So there's no text box here because students don't do any typing. I could easily add that if I wanted to include something like that. But here you can see almost like digital sticky notes, that kind of aqua color on either side of the page. And here students are looking at the different categories across the top, different methods of persuasion that the pigeon uses. And they go ahead and just drag those into where they think they belong. And they can change their mind, they can move things around. You may want them to write down and justify their answers, but even if they just do this sorting activity and turn it into you, you can actually review those and get a sense of what they're understanding well, and maybe where their misconceptions are, because you can clear that up with further activities, checking in with students, providing feedback, and even meeting with them face-to-face in that video conferencing software and discussing those things with them. Finally, our last step is for students to complete the writing task. Now, we can actually copy the writing task directly from the LitCentric Radio lesson and create it on a slide and include space for students to actually type their response. So this one's actually the easiest to create. So here you can see in aqua across the top, this is the writing task from this lesson. I didn't make any adjustments to it, I just cut and pasted there. There may be some adjustments you might need to make in some of the lessons, or some of the writing tasks, I should say. Once in a while, it may ask for a specific resource you want students to use that maybe now in this remote situation they don't have access to. Or maybe there's a situation where it calls for students to work collaboratively, and maybe you want them just doing it on their own. So you can definitely make those adjustments as you need for your students. And of course, you can always make adjustments to any of these things, especially depending on the needs of your students and their age or grade levels, because definitely adjustments need to be made whether you go a little bit higher or lower in those grade spans. So you cut and paste that writing task there. And then like we did before, you include a text box, type in where you want them to start their answer. Again, just so they have it there and there's no, having to mess around with creating their own boxes. And here I included some language that if they want to continue typing or they need further space, they can go ahead and just add a slide and continue on. I don't think most students will need that, but it just depends on the writing task and how confident that writer is, especially as a typist. So I hope that 4-step process is something that you find doable, and I hope you'll consider getting yourself a copy or access to the growing bundle of lessons that LitCentric Radio continues to provide. I know that those lessons can be useful to you right now, and I definitely know they'll be useful to you when we can finally see our students again in the fall. These will continue to be available for you, and like I said, I keep adding to them all the time, so that one low price will get you access to all those lessons as they keep getting added. I hope that this video was helpful to you and that you'll share LitCentric Radio with your friends and colleagues, and I hope you have a great day at school.